thought about how you think? It's a strange question, isn't it? But just take a moment and consider, what difference would it make to your life if you could think better? What is critical thinking? Essentially, it's stepping back from a situation, taking on board all the relevant and appropriate information that you can, and then assessing that information and making logical, clinical judgments and decisions based on it. Why is it important? Well, if you're good at critical thinking, then you are going to be better at decision making, you're better at making sense of the world, you're better at problem solving. When employers are surveyed about the things they're looking for in prospective candidates, more and more now are listing critical thinking as something they find really attractive. So it's important if you're looking for a job. It's a really valuable skill. But in a nutshell, what it does is it means you're much more likely to make better life choices. And hopefully that equates to having a better life. And there's not many skills nowadays you can learn that can offer you that. How does it work? Well, there are three main elements to critical thinking, and number one is problem solving. Now, we've already done a video on problem solving, so I'll put a link to it on this video so you can jump straight to it or check it out at the end. It's up to you. But essentially, when we talk about problem solving, we're talking about having a strategy, doing it in a clinical or a logical way, not just impulsively doing what we've always done before, but actually really pulling it apart and saying, okay, what's going on here, gathering all the information, coming up with multiple solutions, picking our best one, considering what would happen if we did that solution, planning it and putting it into action. Number two, scrutiny. This is really all about asking questions. Critical thinking is about not taking information on its face value or not believing things just because someone told us something was true. It's about exploring it. It's about taking that thing and pulling it apart to see what's behind it. So when you have a piece of information or something that someone's telling you is true, critical thinkers should be asking themselves, where's the evidence to support this? Where are the facts? Is this true? Why should I believe that? And also asking things like, who's telling me this? Why are they telling me this? Is there some reason why now, this time, they're telling me this? Do they have an agenda? Are they biased or are they independent? Is this what other people think, or is it just this one person or this one point of view? Is this a consensus? Is this someone out there on the fringes? You know, all these kind of things you should be asking yourself, because what you're trying to do is test that piece of information. If you test it and you find that it supports itself with facts and evidence, and there's a lot of things that show that piece of information is true, then it's really strong and you can have confidence in it. If you can't find the facts and evidence and it can't stand up to that test, then there's something wrong with it, okay? And we shouldn't really rely on that piece of information. So scrutiny is a really important part of critical thinking. There's a lot more to it than I can go through in this short video. But essentially it's about not taking things on face value. Don't be certain of anything and ask lots of questions. Number three, avoiding thought traps. Now that may sound very strange, but all it really means is this. Our brains are not logical computers. Over thousands of years, they have developed little shortcuts, ways of processing information quicker and getting us through our lives more efficiently. Sometimes these little shortcuts work against us. They don't help us process information properly. They just jump to assumptions and prejudices and judgments, etc. The technical term for these is cognitive biases, and there are literally hundreds of them. I encourage you to Google cognitive biases and see for yourself. Many, many more than I have time to go through in the short space of this video. But to give you some examples, you may have heard of confirmation bias. This is quite a common one. It's where we essentially have an opinion, and then instead of looking at whether it's true or not, we only look at evidence that supports the opinion, and we ignore all the evidence that disagrees with it. Social media is great for this. You may have heard of what they call the echo chamber, or where you live in a bubble. Social media, we often only have people on our Facebook friends group that already agree with us. So we're not getting any alternative points of view. We're only listening to lots of people who say what we already believe. So it's easy for us to start to think that everyone thinks that. When we do get people who start to argue with us and say, that's not right, sometimes what we do is we get rid of them. We shut them down, we unfriend them, we block them so that we don't get that point of view anymore. And if you're doing that, what you are doing is confirmation bias. You're only listening to the information that supports what you already believe, even if what you believe is wrong. There are others. As I said, there are hundreds. So there is one called the bandwagon bias. Bandwagon bias is where you believe something because everyone believes that. You know, if everyone suddenly thinks this is right or this is wrong, it's easy for us to get on the bandwagon and start to think the same way. It's very hard to be the person who goes, actually, no, I don't think that. I think that's wrong. I think the evidence doesn't support that. So confirmation bias and bandwagon bias, there is anchoring bias, there is lots of different effects. There is outcome bias. Outcome bias is where we sometimes have a tendency to look at how something went on the basis of what happened at the end, the outcome. So if it all turns out well, it's easy for us to say, well, that was the right thing to do. It might be that we did all the wrong things and it only turned out well because of luck. We just got lucky. And that doesn't mean we should do it that way ever again, but it's easy for us to say, well, look how well it turned out. And therefore, the way we did it is the way you should do it. It's not necessarily true. That's outcome bias. So you can hopefully relate to a few of these. Check them out. There's loads of them. Okay, but the key thing is this. The key thing is to just not fall into these little traps that our brains set for us. Prejudice is a trap. Assumptions are a trap. Just thinking something's that way because I've always thought that way is a trap. You need to base good critical thinking on evidence, on facts, and on logic. If you do that, you're on much stronger ground than just jumping to a conclusion. You should always be scrutinizing it and asking those questions. That's the way you avoid those traps. Is that true? Why do we think that's true? What evidence is there to support that? So I hope you found that interesting and useful. As I said at the beginning, it's a massively valuable and useful skill to develop critical thinking. So I really would encourage you to investigate it further and look into it a bit more. In the space of this short video, we've only really got time to give you a brief introduction to the concept. So there's a lot more to it. And it is fascinating when you find out how your brain works and the tricks it plays on you. So please check out the problem solving video that we'll have the link at the end. I'll try and put some links in the comments for some other useful videos if you're interested. But other than that, take care, stay safe, and goodbye.